Hey everyone, how's it going? Kermode here, back with another video. Today, I wanted to take a look at a plugin that I have seen so many people talking about recently. It's called Pitchmap by Zynaptiq. I've seen people tweeting about it left and right about how it's an incredible sound design tool, especially if you're into really cool bass music like future rhythm and other genres where the sound design is based around having more tonal basses instead of gritty atonal ones. I reached out to Zynaptiq and asked if I could get a download of Pitchmap to make a video on it, so that's what this is going to be all about. So if you like what you see, you like the plugin, I'm going to leave a link to it in the description of this video. Thank you Zynaptiq for giving me this plugin and letting me play around with it. And without further ado, let's just dive in and look at this really cool device. First and foremost, let me kind of summarize what this plugin is. Pitchmap is a polyphonic pitch corrector. Think of something like Autotune, which takes a monophonic signal and tunes it live. Well, what Pitchmap does is it takes a polyphonic sound or any sort of sound and moves different harmonics around within it to fit a certain scale or a certain pitch setup that you decide. So the reason this is so cool is you can set up presets for the song you're working on, be it chords or again keys or scales, and then run sounds through it to kind of get this more tonal sound out of it and tune it in the way that you want. It's really cool for bass design amongst other things, but again, let me show you on a track so you can really see what's going on. So this is my track, Centipede. And now check out what happens when I turn on Pitchmap. What? It's so cool. So let me run you through the basics. First and foremost, you want to set up the actual pitch correction. So in this case, I actually picked a key. I went and I picked F natural minor because I believe this track is based around F and it would be easier to tune that way. But you don't have to. You could, for example, pick something completely unrelated to the source. We could work in A Dorian on this, for example. Now, if you wanted to change things and set it up yourself, it's really easy. All you do is you go down to this bottom keyboard and you choose the note. So for example, E here, I could have all the E's correct to a different note by looking at how it's changing on the right-hand scale. So that'll actually, I'm telling the E's to move to whatever note on the side here. So you could set up like simple chords that everything gets tuned to. It's really cool and it's really easy in that sense. Now beyond that, there's really only kind of 5 main parameters down here at the bottom. There are some other settings which if you read the manual you can go into, such as the algorithm, how strict things are tuning. But for now, let's just talk about these 5 core parameters because that's all you really need to get going on this. So the threshold, by turning the threshold down, you're going to be tuning more of the information. So as it's higher up, more notes will actually sneak through untuned. Just think of that threshold as, actually what's getting picked up and tuned. Over on the right, I'm going to turn off this electrify knob for a second so we can talk about this purify knob. So the higher this is, the more of the harmonics are actually getting tuned to the point that if the setting's really, really high, you start to lose a little bit of the texture in the top end because the noisy parts of the sound even start to become tuned and tonal. Let me show you. Listen to kind of the top end of this song. Which has a really cool sound to it, but things do lose a little bit of fidelity because you're losing a bit of the texture in the high end. So I kind of like to just pull this back a little bit, So we're getting a little bit of that top end going on, which is kind of nice. Now there's a feel knob, which will allow some of the more natural tuning through. So things like vibrato and other bits of the tuning will actually be a bit less super synthetically tuned the higher this is. So right now with this being super tight, everything's tuning really accurately, really quickly. See there, at that point there, you kind of heard that it wasn't quite as tight. I usually like to keep it really tight for the purpose of kind of this bass sound design style of using this plugin. Now there's also a glide function, so as things are tuning, it'll actually bend up to the next note that it's tuning to. A little bit of this can add a lot of flavor. Go too high though, and then things start to sound really detuned and gross because they don't tune fast enough. And then lastly, this electrify knob is really cool here. In the manual, it doesn't fully describe what's actually happening here, but the more to the right you go, the more of a synthetic electric sound it has. I find that in my mind, I imagine it sounds more like a saw wave versus the original harmonics of the sound. See how it's taken on a bit of a horn saw kind of timbre. It's a bit more nasally, and sometimes it's really nice when running things through it because it's kind of got this like lead quality to it. So cool. This is me from the future here. I wanted to add one more thing, as it's a feature I've now come to enjoy that I wasn't using when I first made this video, and it's the Sidechain MIDI feature. Let's look at this real quick as well. So I have a really simple string sound up top here. As well as a vocal sound here. And now check this out. I have Pitchmap on it, receiving MIDI from the tracks below. Now if I open up Pitchmap here, you can see I've set it to MIDI map mode right here. Now watch what happens to these sounds. So you can actually have monophonic or polyphonic information being sent to Pitchmap, and then Pitchmap will actually tune your audio signal, and it'll actually tune it to that incoming MIDI. Okay, I just wanted to interrupt with that feature. Back to past me. So that's taking a look at it, on the context of a track. Let's take a look at it in terms of how I would use it. How would I use this plugin? Why was I so keen on getting it? So it's going to be really cool for adding to sounds that aren't tonal to make them a lot more tonal. Now, in my production, I like to do a lot of randomized sound design, which is where I think this will especially be super cool. So I set something up here. I've got a little note sequence here going up the E minor pentatonic. So we've got the E, G, A, B, D, and E in a higher octave. And what's going to happen is we have this randomized serum patch, which I'm not going to go into. It's kind of like a random neuro bass patch I have where it just creates these like screechy, distorted bass sounds. I wouldn't even call it neuro, but let's check it out. And I'm going to have it go up the scale so I actually have some material to work with beyond just the root note of whatever track I'm going to run it through. Then I'm going to run it through Soothe just to tame the high end a little bit. And I'm going to run it through Rift. Rift is a really cool distortion plugin. And what I like about it is it has this random function. Pretty wild, right? So we're going to have Rift run through Pitchmap, and then I'm going to cut out the sub on this, and I'm going to have a version with the clean sub just for the sake of this resampling. Now this isn't perfectly set up. I would probably have a clean sub going through the whole thing. However, for the sake of this tutorial, let's set it up this way. Now I knew that we were working with the A minor pentatonic because I set it up that way. And I'm going to play with the settings. Primarily, I'm going to keep the threshold pretty low and the feel pretty low because I don't want to, I want it to overtune. And I'm just really going to play with the amount it's purifying, so the amount of the texture of the high end that comes through, and this electrify knob while I resample things. And I'm just going to hit record. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let Rift and the random preset do its magic, and I'm going to let Pitchmap do its magic, and listen to the beautiful, weird sound design that's going to come out of this. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And Pitchmap really took all that just nasty, distorted stuff and made it something really harmonic and beautiful. And let's just create a cool little pattern to kind of bring things home here. What's really fun sometimes is when you do a big recording like this, try quantizing it and see what gets put into place. Okay, so I sped up the pattern a little bit just to make it a bit more interesting, but just check out how cool this sounds without, again, I would spend so much more time making the actual source sound nice, but just watch how beautiful these weird glitchy textures are, all because of Pitchmap. So there we go, everyone. That was Pitchmap by Zynaptiq. Huge thank you to Zynaptiq for letting me download this plugin and play around with it. I think it's cool. Once again, I'll leave a link to the plugin down below, and I'll be back soon with another video. Thanks, everyone. See ya.